tonight.
You said you had a meeting. Oh, you had a Zoom?
I had Zoom, higher ed.
Okay. If I could have everyone's attention at this time. Wow. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jay Collins, and I'm the chairman of the House Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee. The speaker had challenged this committee and asked this committee to take a look at the uptick in crime that's been occurring in the Atlanta area. And so we have been holding a series of hearings since the first of the summer. And I thought it would be a good idea if we came out into a House district in Atlanta to hear from some constituents of different districts throughout the metro area and specifically here in the downtown area. I reached out to Representative Misha Maynor. She was kind enough to host this event and put this event together for this committee. Before we start, I would like to ask Gerald Green, if he would, to lead us in a word of prayer at this time, please.
Sure. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, as we gather together, let us be clear in the message that we send to the people of the state of Georgia. Let us be concerned about the citizens of Georgia. Let us be concerned that we as legislators, as public servants, are going to be able to do the people's business. And Father, we just ask you to be with us now, guide us and direct us in all things. Be with us as we deliberate, as we listen, as we understand the issues. And Father, we ask all of this in the name of our Lord and Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Before we dive into the hearing this evening, I want to give the committee members an opportunity to introduce themselves and tell us what House district they represent and what part of the state they're from. So we're going to start on the far left-hand side of the room here.
Hey, good to be here tonight. I'm Rick Jaspers. I'm from Jasper, North Georgia, and chairman of the House Transportation Committee.
Hello, I'm Representative Becky Evans, and I serve DeKalb County, parts of Decatur, and Atlanta, and unincorporated DeKalb.
I'm Alan Powell from Hartwell, Georgia. I chair the House Regulated Industries Committee and long-time member of the Public Safety Committee.
Good evening. I'm Representative Jesse Petrie. I represent Savannah, and I'm the chairman of Aging and Human Relations.
I'm Gerald Green. I'm chair of the State Properties Committee, and I'm from Southwest Georgia. And if you're headed down in Southwest Georgia, you will find that when you hit my region, it's the largest geographical region in the state, and we'd be glad to have you. And thank you, Representative, for doing this for all of us.
My name's Darlene Taylor, and I represent District 173. I have the most southwest corner of the state. It's a rural area. I live in Thomasville, and I chair the Governmental Affairs Committee, and I've been on this committee for 11 years. It's a very important committee, and I too would like to thank Representative Maynor. I think this is very needed, and I'm very glad to see so many people here tonight to discuss this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Representative Maynor, for also having this right here in the middle of Atlanta. I'm State Representative Gloria Frazier, and I represent the great city of Augusta, Georgia, home of James Brown. And I am so happy to be here. I've been on this committee, Public Safety and Homeland Security, for 16 years. Thank you all for being here.
Okay, and again, I'm Jay Collins. I represent House District 68, which is over in West Georgia, the Temple and Villa Rica area. Again, we're very glad for the turnout that we've had here this evening. And this is a kind of a hybrid meeting, a new concept, if you will, for the Public Safety Committee. We're going to recognize now Representative Maynor to make a few comments. And for those of you who are joining us online, if for some reason the feed goes down and the Wi-Fi kicks us off, this meeting is going to be recorded and it will be posted on the House website later tomorrow. So for some reason, if you're joining us online and we get kicked off, don't worry, we're going to record the meeting and post it online. So Representative Maynard, if you would, please.
Hello? Okay. Thank you again, Chairman Collins and the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee. So one thing I want to just start off with is I'm not on this committee. I'm on the Education, the Governmental Affairs, and Interstate Planning Committee. And for those of my citizens and residents that are in the audience and those online, what's so important about that is this committee did not have to come here, and they have traveled from so far to be here. This is a historic event for this committee to be in our community. I feel so grateful for that. Why is crime important to me? This is my first year as an elected official representing State House District 56. Crime is important to me because, guess what? I have to walk around with this paper. I know they over there know what this is, but this is a restraining order because I've been stalked, and if my person comes around me, I need to show this paper to somebody so the police can lock him up, right? And so since I have gotten to the state office, I never knew why I was running. I just knew I could do a good job. And the Lord put circumstances in front of me so I can be an advocate for it, and crime has become one of those things because I've just been a victim. And so at the state capitol, I represent victims. I also represent law enforcement because I need law enforcement. And there have been bills that have been passed that have been controversial, but unless we know why people vote the way they do, we've got to understand that we are so diverse, and we shouldn't just be upset when someone votes a certain way. So I want to start with all the elected officials or people that are representing elected officials to just stand for a moment, please. And also our law enforcement officers and public safety. Thank you. This did take an effort to put this on, and so I have a resident from the Morningside community. I represent portions of Morningside. I represent this historic West Side, but also represent Piedmont Park, Ansley Park, Sherwood Forest. So Ms. Suki Clark, if you can come up and just welcome the citizens as well as the committee.
A little bit shorter than you. Good evening. So I want to say thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you, Representative Maynard, for the nice opportunity for allowing me to be part of such a historic event, and for this great city of Atlanta that we care so deeply about. On behalf of the citizens in this great city, it is my pleasure to welcome everyone, virtually and also here in person. As a resident of Morningside, I am thankful that Representative Misha Maynard has taken the initiative to address such an important topic, the rising crime in our communities. Without the dialogue and deep engagement, we cannot get anywhere. So it starts at the local level. It starts with us. We all can make a difference in the lives of so many citizens in Atlanta and throughout Georgia as well. So I really, this, you know, I have a 16-year-old daughter that goes to Midtown High School, and she drives. She's out at night. She's working, as a matter of fact, tutoring this evening. And as a citizen, I do worry. I worry about her pumping gas in the evening. I worry for her safety, and I worry for all the seniors. I'm in the healthcare business, serving the seniors, the aging population. That's near and dear to my heart. So I think about all of the citizens, men, women. I think about our law enforcement that are out there doing hard work each and every day to make sure that we are living in a safe environment. So it begins with us in driving change and accountability in our city. I thank each of you, virtually and here in person, to be part of such a historic event in communicating the needs of our city and helping each and every one of us to have a community that we can all thrive, we can all feel safe, we can also have quality of life. And it is more than just having a town hall meeting. It begins with a dialogue, transparency, accountability, and we got to put our words in our action. And we also have to follow up. How are things going? So I'm just really grateful to God for allowing me for Representative Maynard to allow me to be part of this, because it is important, it's relevant, and God bless each and every one of you. Stay safe, and thank you again.
I'm going to have Deanna Harris come up, and she's going to begin to introduce some of the law enforcement officers that we have here today. I thought it was important for the committee to hear directly from them because they know what the data is. We as citizens, we don't know what the data is, and I would like them to come forward, and Deanna will introduce them.
Thank you, Representative Maynard. Please allow me to introduce Major Collier and Major Spainer.
Good afternoon, everybody. I guess I can take this mask off. Nobody's hopefully offended. Greetings, and I'm so glad to be here. I am the commander of Zone 5, the Midtown, Downtown, and English Avenue community. Chief Peak just walked in, so we'll get him up here next. But it's really, it's a great opportunity to see you all in person. I'm big fans of you all. I see you online all the time. And it's really a good opportunity to have a discussion and a dialogue, and thank you. You made some very valid points. One, accountability is so important. And oftentimes we see where the police department itself is being held accountable and nobody else. So throughout the pandemic, when we initially started to see the increase in crime, we noticed that during the pandemic, the police were the only people still working, the only people. So the jails were closed. We had additional people on the streets that just consistently plagued the zone. Atlanta was one of the cities that were still open during the pandemic. And specifically for Zone 5, during the pandemic, the downtown and midtown area suffered tremendously because of our nightlife. Our nightlife activity was just, in an urban word, on fleek. And we had people come down. They had Detroit days, Philadelphia days, New York days, you name it, they had it. Chicago days, and oftentimes what happened is these nights would end in violent crime. And so, of course, it looked like the police weren't doing anything, right? Our hands were tied with the different ordinances as it reads for Chapter 10, how it relates to how clubs and restaurants can get business and alcohol license in our city. So once that happened, we started to try to modify our efforts. What could we do different? What could we work with the courts to do different to make sure that we were maintaining and doing everything that we could in our prospective area? So for me, being that I am one of the smallest zones of 6, I have some of the most people. You all know it, you see it every day. I have the protesters that come to Zone 5. I have the street racers that come to Zone 5. I have all of the fans, all of the tourists, the hotel district. I have it all, you name it, including you all. You come every day to work at the Capitol Complex, public safety headquarters, and all of the courts. So you name it, I had it there. So it was a challenge, true challenge for me, because I've had to modify, create, be very creative, listen to the community members, and still today, some of those issues are still a challenge. I'm still feeling what we started when the pandemic initially started. You all saw the article from DA Willis. She talked about her backlog. We can talk about how the #1 crime in the downtown space for some time has been car break-ins. That is the #1 crime in the downtown space. Nobody feels safe because everybody's cars gets broken into. I don't know if you follow ATL Scoop. They show you every single day somebody's glass is broken, somebody's car was entered, a gun was stolen, a laptop was taken. I have 3 colleges in my zone: SCAD, Georgia Tech, and Georgia State University. Everybody that comes to the city is a potential victim. And why is that? We were just talking about it earlier today. We had a young man who was arrested, has been arrested for multiple car break-ins. This man goes to jail in Fulton County. He gets out, and guess how many days? 3. We don't expect that he's sitting at home watching Netflix, but he's back in our zone, and he's plaguing the city, and he's going around to these different places, consistently doing what he's doing. So again, accountability is really important. It just can't be a police thing, can't be a police matter, but everybody needs to take part on this. In addition to this, and I'll stop soon, I'll get to you. My citizens who are without homes, you all see the tents all the time. I have Greyhound located in Zone 5 as well. So I get an influx of visitors who later become residents, who have no homes, who are oftentimes sent to the state of Georgia with a one-way ticket. I don't know if they come to Augusta, but they definitely come to the city. We provide numerous resources, and I know everybody has a heart, they want to help, and oftentimes at Woodruff Park, Hurt Plaza, these are the places where my homeless citizens can go and get various resources without having to work, without getting the proper resources that they need for their mental capacity, for their substance abuse issues, whatever it may be. They don't get their necessities. They get a sandwich, they get food, they get tents, and at times, you all give them money. And what does that mean? The money now goes to a drug dealer who supports that habit. Grady, on the other hand, they're short-staffed. They are not able to come out and assist us with what we need. We have a young lady who sits at the corner of Peachtree and Marietta Street. She's about 300 pounds. She normally has fecal matter that's on her on a daily basis. No matter how many times our nonprofit organizations have gone out to try to assist her, she's still there. And even today, 2 days in a row, we've tried to assist her and trying to make sure she has the resources that she needs. But again, we're talking about somebody has created this scenario where now this is a police matter. How is that a police matter? Georgia State University, MARTA Police, as well as APD have all assisted her. The police alternative diversion team has assisted her, as well as the social impact team with Downtown Improvement District has tried to assist her as well. So saying all that to say, again, accountability is really important. It's just not a police matter, but we definitely need to be all on one accord to make sure that we are addressing those issues in our community, to make sure we're doing a better job than where we already are, to make sure it's better for next year and the year after and the year after. That's all I got, unless somebody has questions.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
I have a question.
How do we do this? Does she come up?
We'll take questions from the
Okay.
committee first, and then we'll.
Sure, okay.
I have a question, Major.
Yeah.
Thank you. Listen, thank you for your service, first of all.
Thank you.
And thank you for your comments. So powerful. And I'll mention, I hear a lot of this. So I'm down in Savannah, and so I hear a lot of very involved in our local issues, a lot of which are similar. And so I wanted to speak to a couple of things that you touched on. First of all, every law enforcement officer I speak to echoes a common theme around accountability. And even as a parent, I think we understand superficially, you know, almost all of us understand that you either have accountability or you have chaos. And so, and as a parent, you certainly learn that very quickly. And so this issue about individuals who commit crimes and then are not held accountable. And of course, we've seen an increase of that with the courts going dormant, to use that term, during the pandemic. But the recidivism rate, the cycle of individuals in and out and in and out, and this is a huge issue, not just here, but in this country. And so I appreciate your point because it's well made. The other thing I want to speak to is the issue of homelessness. Now, we all recognize that these are people that need help. They need care. They need mental health care. They need substance abuse care. They need a lot of things. And so I want to be very sensitive to that. We have a great deal of that in Savannah, too. But I want to emphasize something that I think you're saying as well. In my community, my constituents are very concerned about it because it interferes with their ability to live life. They are afraid oftentimes. We have panhandling. I've had constituents tell me, I don't go to Walmart after dark because they follow me to my car and I'm afraid. And so it infringes on the freedom of our constituents when they have individuals that often misbehave, not always, but people are threatened by them. So what I wanted to ask you is what we need is a place for homeless people to get the care they need. They don't need to be sleeping in tents with no running water, no toilet facilities, no fundamentals of human life. That's unsafe for any human. So as a matter of being humane, we need a place for people to go that are homeless. And then I think law enforcement can direct them somewhere rather than have them following people to their cars and parking lots. These are the kind of things I hear. Downtown, harassing, oftentimes tourists and things of that nature. But we need a place for people to go where they can get the care they need and the basic necessities of life that they need. And if we had that, it would seem to me it would take much of that burden off of law enforcement, because I agree with you, we're failing there. We are failing to take care of the homeless in this country, and I know that our caucus has discussed making mental health a huge priority this session coming up. And so we need to deal with mental health and getting these people the care that they need. I just want to emphasize that I hear you, because that's what they need. Law enforcement should not be encumbered by that when you need to be protecting the population. So thank you for your comments and thank you for your service.
Absolutely, thank you.
Representative Jasper, Chairman Jasper, you have a comment you want to make or a question?
Major Span, Princina.
Span? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. You really serve a critical area in our state. You describe the colleges, but also all the news media is they're in your district too, And as he just said, we appreciate what you do, but I'm curious about staffing. What y'all did, I think all law enforcement and everybody in the EMS, everybody during the pandemic was just critical and did a great job. But currently, I think we all think you're understaffed, or we hear you are. But to do your job, I think you have a number in your mind. And where are you at now? I'd be curious. And plus, we do not want to get you in trouble. If with your boss or whoever is here, like you look like you're in charge. Just shake your head and say,
Look, the paperwork will come after the fact.
Okay, I'm sorry I should, but just shake your head like, no, I don't need to answer that, or you can do it later. But where are you at? And you're in a critical area.
So, like I said, out of the 6 zones, I have the most people, so I don't want to really talk about my number in front of Major Collier because he'll get upset. but I have about 160 on the streets.
Okay.
Now, that is including people who may be suffering from COVID at this time, who are on FMLA, who have some different issues, maybe sitting on the desk for various reasons. But one thing I do want to say about that is that I'm a resident of the city of Atlanta as well. And oftentimes, honestly, we always talk about this magical number for APD. And that magical number is always 2,000, 2,045, right? Zone 5 has so many different constructions for various apartments, condos. I spoke to you about how many students I have in my area. We probably need to get away from saying this magical number of 2,000. No longer is the city of Atlanta Mayberry. We're out of that. That's done.
Yeah.
Everybody comes here. I came here from Washington, D.C. I love it. I'm not going back. And I'm bringing my family down. So now what does that look like? There's more people coming to the city. So I think the police department definitely needs to look at another magical number, which is up there probably about the 3s, 4s, 5s. Look at it like that.
Yes, ma'am.
For sure.
Thank you.
Representative Frazier.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Major Stan, for that presentation. You articulated it very well. Am I on? You can hear me.
I think you're on, but you're just a little low.
We're here today. I'm here to find out what you need. You talked about what you have to do in your zone, and it's a lot. I need to know, where are you all as it relates to education for mental health, being able to know how to detect it when you go and get a call about somebody being erratic, or when your officers approach that person or persons, and how do you determine whether that is mental illness or just behavioral issues? Because you have a degree of learning about mental health, but you're not mental health specialists.
Correct.
So what do you do, and what do you need from us to help you, because that is one of our rising issues here all over the state, is mental illness. And so how can we help you with that? I know you need more people, but you need more trained experts, I guess, in that area, and or that's not your area.
So it is my area and not my area. So just to, and piggybacking off of what the representative, I'm sorry, forgive me, because I can't remember your name. But when he kind of talked about the homeless individuals, there are a couple of different types of homeless individuals. Everybody can say no, right? When we want to offer them help, they can definitely say no. And oftentimes what we see is the ones that are suffering from a mental illness or substance abuse, those are the ones that stay on the street. For them, we need social workers, we need funding. Like the young lady I spoke about with the fecal matter all over her, we need money for her. We discussed a couple of weeks ago that this lady has already used $1 million in resources, already. But there's $40,000 that it would take to house her, mandated housing, into a facility where she can get the help that she needs. Nobody wants to do it because everybody is like, they don't have the money. So we need those additional social workers on the street. We need that additional funding to assist. And we need, people to be proactively, when we ask for resources from Mercy Mobile or whomever it may be, we need it. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
We have someone in the audience that would like to speak. If you want to come up to the podium.
Thank you. I want to piggyback what the officer said.
If you'll give us your name. And
my name is
social
Nicole Wiesen, and I'm a CPR, which is a conflict mitigation, rehabilitation development manager for the National Incarceration Association. I'm also a social worker, and I also spent time in DOC. Part of what she was saying is true. You do have those individuals that are suffering from mental illness as well as addiction. More than just the social workers, you need those social workers who are actually trained specifically in trauma, in addictions, as well as post-incarceration challenges that will help offset and mitigate the challenges that they're facing. Having this woman with this fecal matter that's all over her body and the $100,000 in resources that have been used for her, what I'm hearing is that the issue is not being addressed. It's not being addressed correctly in what it is that she needs, and it's probably potentially a host of issues where the social worker or the contacts that you guys have are not addressing her specific needs because they're not meeting the woman in her environment. Social work has an issue called person and environment. You need to have a trained social worker be able to assess each individual in their issue presently as it stands, and then work backwards as to what has potentially gotten them to that situation.
Thank you. What I would like to do before we get into taking too many questions is I would like to hear from the representatives from the police department or anyone else who would like to speak and give some testimony to us, and then hear from members of the community on a variety of issues and let you speak as time will permit. Otherwise, I feel like we'll get bogged down too much if we do too many all at one time. So is there anyone else here from the APD that would like to come up and speak and give any testimony as to or answer questions from the committees?
So we have, yes, I was going to say you both, because one is from the Community Services Division and the other's from Field Division, Field Operations.
Thank you. If you'll give us your name and rank and what your title is with the APD, please.
So good evening. First off, thank you all for having us, and thank you for your leadership and what you're doing and your concern and service for the city of Atlanta as well as the state of Georgia. Likewise, my name is Deputy Chief Timothy Peak. I'm the Field Operations Division Commander for the Atlanta Police Department, and that consists of all 6 precincts. My responsibility is to work with all 6 majors and ensure that they get the resources that they need, the support that they need to continue the day-to-day resources and services. I don't want to be extremely repetitive, but Major Span did an outstanding job about some of the issues that we're facing, and as we just had a press release yesterday with Chief Bryan, and we look at what we're doing and how we could better address crime, how we can better address issues within the city of Atlanta. And the challenge that we constantly see is that we're held accountable. We're held accountable when whatever's going on, the police department is held accountable. But we do not see the other pieces of the criminal justice system. And this is not a blanket statement, so please forgive me. We certainly enjoy our relationship with Madam DA with Fulton County. We also work with Madam Boston in DeKalb as well as Clayton County because of our footprint at the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. So we have great relationships. We're moving forward, but the repeat offender issues are serious. We're constantly dealing with the same people, and no sooner than we put them in jail, yes, we have to spend an enormous amount of resources just to go back and start an investigation from scratch, just to determine what they're doing since they've been out of jail. That piece, we have to get a footprint. We got to get a handle on that. As Major Span spoke of the issues where we're talking, and this really falls within Chief Murphy's footprint because she has a HOPE team, Homeless Outreach, Proactive Enforcement. The challenge is that passive no. So we're working with police and the Alternatives Division to make sure that we offer those resources, and as the young lady stated, trying to meet people where they are to deal with it. Some of the challenges are it used to be called pre-arrest. There are some people that it's obvious that they don't have the capacity to give you an honest answer of what they need. So I don't know what we can do. I know when I was meeting with the DeKalb County Coalition, they were looking at trying to really and truly work with the group to sponsor papers so that we could more or less those critical people that you know that are a danger to themselves and others, that we could somehow compel them to get the treatment that they need, not incarceration, but to actually really and truly get the treatment so that we can restore them and have them to become citizens, productive citizens within society. And so that's our hope and prayer. So dealing with that, I know that the answer came as far as the resources. Yes, There's not a law enforcement agency, I believe, in the state of Georgia that's not short at this particular point in time. And as we constantly meet with all the major cities across the United States, we find that they're in the exact same position. The good news is that we're getting the interest. We're having very aggressive recruiting, and so we're seeing the fruits of that labor come as we speak. But at the same point in time, we also recognize that the state and the city particularly has outgrown the services that we provide. And so, yes, we do have to start looking ahead, looking at what that magic number looks like moving forward. I think the last conversation that we had, we were focusing on 23 to 25, but yet and still I can recall in probably 95, our goal then was shooting for 2,000, and we did reach that at the beginning of Mayor Reed's administration, but we've been struggling ever since to try to deal with those numbers. So really and truly focusing, having some real good outreach and dealing what we need to do. One of the places that we would constantly go is New York, because they always had a waiting list of officers. Well, now New York, I'm told, is somewhere probably about 7,000 to 8,000 short, and there is no waiting list. So we're not as fruitful going there and doing the recruitment. So we're focusing where we are, working, trying to get ideas, working with military to do all of those things to grow our public safety. But of course, we want to ensure that we grow it the right way, so that we put the best trained officers that we can put on the street to move forward. But that's where we are, and so we're thankful. We think we're in a good place. We're moving forward, but we recognize that we have a whole lot of work to do with filling those gaps within the justice system.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Deputy Chief Celeste Murphy, and as was stated, I'm over the Community Services Division of the Atlanta Police Department. What that entails would be our HOPE team, which is a homeless outreach, proactive enforcement, and that covers the city, an entire city of Atlanta. And I also have a homeless outreach team at the airport, because we have a really substantial population at the airport as well. So when I kind of pulled together what you were saying, what can we do? And then I'm pulling together what she said about, meeting people where they're at. The biggest challenge that we're seeing, again, like Major Spann said, was substance abuse and or mental health. The problem is that as best as everyone is trying to solve the problem, it's almost like everybody's sort of operating in silos. So we just have to come together collectively. It's gotta be the hospitals, it's gotta be social workers, it's gotta be everybody, as much as we can, to leave the police out of it. We'll assist on a security level, but as far as I'm concerned, these are issues that we shouldn't be the forefront on. So when it comes to what do we need, give an example. During the day when we use the police and alternatives and diversion, excellent. They provide resources as best as they can. My issue is overnight. There's just not a 24-hour cycle of resources that we can use. And oftentimes, most of your issues are gonna be, there are issues, especially downtown during the day, but when that overnight time comes and everything is closed, we have nothing, and it's all on us. And we cannot arrest our way out of this situation. We have, for eons of years, used that as the solution, and it's just not. So when it gets to, what can we do? Let's just figure out how we can all pull together, get all the resources to work together, and make it happen. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I have a comment just to make briefly. Thank you both again. I'll continue with the theme. Thank you for your service. Deputy Chief, I just want to mention something I tell a lot of people at home that sounds commonsensical, and I know you know this to be true, but I want to remind everybody here, the issue of accountability, which you as well as everyone else has spoken to, just to be clear, the people that hold criminals accountable are elected people. They are judges who are elected. They are district attorneys who are elected. It is the people that elect the people who determine whether individuals who commit crimes are held accountable or not. And I know you know that to be true, sir, but I thought you'd appreciate that comment. Thank you, sir.
Representative Evans, you have a comment.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to confirm with the woman from the Yeah, Ms. Murphy? Yeah, I'm sorry. So when you said we need to pull together, you know, we can't just arrest our way out of this. So as far as other solutions, what are we talking about? Are we talking about additional housing? Or like if you're asking, like.
Right. So it includes housing as well. You know, the shelters close at a certain time and they let out at a certain time. So yeah, housing, social services, you know, drug rehab, all of that. But we have to figure out a way with them, you know, how are we going to combine our money or our resources and our special skills that each of us have to collectively be able to address this. So it does, yes, it does include that. And I can't speak to what the fix is. I know I recently visited Houston, Texas, and they have sort of like a diversion program, very, very comprehensive. They have a sobering center, they have a respite, you know, all of these things that they've developed over the years, and that's something that we're looking into to try to, with the county, initiate now. But that seems to be the more sustainable solution.
Thank you. We heard a bill earlier last spring about programs for the homeless, and I don't know if it was with Houston. Do any of y'all remember if the example, this was the one that Katie Dempsey brought to us, but it did involve, one of the steps of the program was to criminalize sleeping on the streets. Is that something that would be helpful or harmful for APD?
I missed the first part of that. I heard sleeping.
We heard a bill this past session that talked about creating an alternative location, a safe location for people who are homeless, but a part of that process would be criminalizing sleeping on the streets, like it would be a crime to sleep on the streets. Is that something that you would favor or not?
So, for the most part now, our interactions to some degree is whether it's my team that offers the services and there's this repetitive, you know, offering of services, they decline, you go back and offer, and there's a step-by-step, you know, hopefully leading up to that. Other than that, if there is a situation where there's a low-level crime or not, that's where the diversion piece comes in. So I'm not sure if that's what you mean as far as is that an arresting situation?
No, I guess I'm just saying, our job is to consider new legislation, and I'm asking if that's a tool that you would need or not.
No, you don't have to arrest. We can divert without arrest.
Right. Okay.
I mean, we would love to do that now, you know, but there's nowhere to
We don't have
divert.
a place to send them.
We don't have enough capacity, and you know, the small team that I have is for the entire city. I only have about maybe 4 or 5 officers that are able to give that outreach. Wow. You know, and then I have about 3, I think, at the airport. So we don't really, and when I say that, I mean those are the ones that are actually assigned to that unit. What I do is I just pull resources from other units in my division to help assist them, especially when we do larger details. We do cleanups, you know, under the bridges, you know, those type of things, you know, and we pull our resources together, but it just sometimes feel like it's just us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other personnel here that would like to speak before we open it up for some comments from the public? And again, you know, we as a committee, we want to hear from you. This is your area, this is your city, and we're concerned about what's going on. So what we'd like to do is just hear from you as to what you think about needs to be done locally, maybe going up to the state level, and how we can maybe provide support or legislation to help this problem that we all see. We've heard some good things tonight already, and I'd like to open it up now. If you want to kind of form a line here and go back to the mic, I would just ask that, given the fact that we're under a time constraint and there are a lot of people here, just brevity would be appreciated. But we also want to give you time to speak your piece and to say what's on your mind. This is your time, so please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and other members of the committees. I do promise to be brief. So first of all, thank you all for being the committee that would come over and have this happen. Additionally, thanks for having so many other chairmen of other committees to be on the committee. It'd be highly useful.
You can thank Speaker David Ralston for that.
Very good, I shall do that. The comments from those of us from the community, I am a certified mediator and a public engagement stakeholder for neighborhoods and communities. I am a former neighborhood planning unit chairperson of an NPU in West Atlanta about neighborhood, community, faith, and small business leaders.
So you have institutional knowledge.
Indeed, indeed. And the institutional reference point that I want to speak to is the one that you communicated called there seems to be a recent uptick in crime. For those of us who live in the neighborhoods and communities, this has been a consistent problem and issue for us. It speaks to the heart of who we are. We have been for years requesting this kind of communication to come to our communities. Now, Representative Misha Maynor has been a part of that conversation to have attention and support come to our neighborhoods and our communities. There are several different organizations. The one that I am associated with is Street Groomers, who are looking to have neighborhood leaders, community leaders, faith leaders, and small business leaders have the same access to the public policy as lobbyists and special interest groups. Our concern is that now that there has been some incidents of violence in Buckhead, there all of a sudden seems to be a plethora of interest in violence and violence prevention. Mr. Chairman, we would like to not see the issue that people have been working on for years be hijacked by the major media component. And so our communication to you and the members of the committees is that those of us who are community leaders, we have been working on this all along. We are ecstatic to see you here. We're interested in a comprehensive response rather than a situational reaction. And I'll wrap up my communication by saying the following. We're clear that attention has to be strategic and measurable, and understand that accountability is key as well as budget items. We understand that. So the social worker, the community-oriented policing, and the kind of resources that are needed, we understand that, and we're ecstatic to see the urgency of it. But please, I urge you, do not let this become a justification for hard-edged, massive incarceration. So as a neighborhood leader, a community leader, a faith leader, and a small business leaders, I implore you to do the due diligence for public policy management that is consistent and available with grace, accountability, and understanding, such that the reaction for hard-edged, massive incarceration does not become the order of the day.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I appreciate the committee members for listening to this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, she said I should give my name. My name is Al Bartell, B-A-R-T-E-L-L, and I'm a stakeholder of the Street Groomers Initiative and a supporter of State Representative Misha Maynor.
Thank you.
I just want to give a little bit of clarification to everybody that's here and also people that are online. So we're going to have a part 2 crime town hall with the Judiciary Committee. And the Judiciary Committee is, and Chairman Burchett is going to speak later in the evening. He's at a football game with his son.
Okay.
But that committee deals with the correctional justice system. So I do want us to know that who our audience is. So this audience is law enforcement, public safety, homeland security. Part 2 will be corrections, although there is a lot of overlap.
We have a comment now from Chairman Powell. He has a comment.
Thank you. Reverend, is it Reverend Bartell? Yes, sir. I had a couple of questions I want to ask, and I want to talk to the law enforcement, if you might. I've sat here and I've listened to a lot of the testimony here, and you know, and I certainly understand. We're talking about a two-edged sword for the problems that we have.
We are.
We've got blatant disrespect for law.
We do.
And a lot of that is being done because of the social networking or the social failures. People are out of work. People don't have a home. Homeless people, drug abuse, all of these type of things. A lot of these are actions and consequences that's created those problems.
Correct.
Somebody does drugs, well, then they suffer the consequences, then they become another issue.
They do.
Question, I had a question, and for somebody who helped former Governor Deal on criminal justice reform.
Right, exactly.
One of the things that I had a concern that you said that you don't want us to use this as a viaduct for mass incarceration.
Correct.
Well, let me say, I don't think anybody in state government wants mass incarceration.
Okay.
What we would like to see is the enforcement of laws.
Okay.
You know, there's a difference between somebody that gets locked up for a bag of pot or somebody that continues to break in cars.
True.
Or somebody that breaks in somebody's house.
Right.
Or neighborhood crime of shooting up a neighborhood. I never quite understood somebody, the gangs and the stuff like this, but that's part of unfortunately, that's part of our society. But the question I've got is, my experience is that, you know, I'm a believer about actions produce consequences.
They do.
Some of the things that sooner or later we've got to reach a point that people understand that certain crimes merit incarceration.
They do.
And we've got a system, and I want to talk to our friends with law enforcement in a minute about some other issues I've got that I'd like to find out about. But other than the social issues that need to be addressed.
Sure.
Any suggestions about how City Hall can merit or they can get involved? Anyway, the state. You know, I know that we've got billions of dollars that are being ladled out by the Washington crowd right now.
Right.
Maybe that's the time that some of these social issues need to be done on
It
those
would be.
one-time fixes. But we've also got to reinstill the confidence in the public.
We do.
About the enforcement of law.
We do.
We can't continue to have officers that are dismissed without summary,
judgment,
without due process.
Right.
We can't have people charged just because, well, wait a minute, it's not popular in the neighborhood.
Correct.
And these are the things that law enforcement needs to have the support of law-abiding citizens. And the criminals, whether they're gangs or whether they're the young man who breaks into cars on a steady basis and then he's turned out inside of a day or two, or the guys that get caught running in excess of 100 miles an hour,
right.
Which to me, that's assault with a deadly weapon if there ever was one.
Understood.
And then all of a sudden, they just get flipped out by the court.
True.
Because there's no place to put them.
Right.
There's no bond. They've done away with bond and things like this. So all of that stuff I talked about, as a community activist, give me a little bit of feel because we've all got to reach out and improve our own lot.
Right. Well, you pointing to all of the reference points that has given all of us, both on the government side and the community side, a reaction to acting in silos. As the Major said, we're not going to be able to police our way out of this. The point you're making is we have to have accountability for criminal intent, and the case has been made about social workers and mental health. The issue is those are now silos. We do not have an infrastructure in place that includes police, accountability for incarceration, and community. When in 1993, 94, the 3 strikes you're out, the reaction to the public for heinous crimes, we all are guilty of overreacting to that. It has landed in the lap of the system. We're clear that the system cannot do it alone. So the recommendations are in the strategy for police and law enforcement and incarceration include the community, such that when these folks get out of jails, the community is already involved in their lives. Currently, the community doesn't get involved in their lives until they come out of jail. That's a failing strategy. The people who go to court and they get convicted for a crime, that accountability is real and should never be taken off of the books in the operations of a democracy. But it is not a standalone methodology, and the community needs to be included in the sentencing and the conviction so that we don't send people off to prison. They go to prison but stay attached to the community. When an ex-offender is attached to the community while they're incarcerated, the rate of recidivism decreases by 85.7%. A person who goes to jail for the exact same crime but is not connected to the community, their opportunity or their likelihood of succeeding is 0.5%. So the recommendation is to have community included in law enforcement, such as community policing, to have community organization be included in the management of incarceration, such that when the individual will come back to the community, they're already connected. Governor Deal had a framework for making that happen. He put together a statewide framework to have that be included, but he was only able to serve 2 terms. We do not currently know what has happened to those particular strategies. It would be useful for this committee to consider what has happened to that, and your point be taken, Carl. We can't just let people back out on the street. We can't just allow recidivism. We have to be accountable, but that accountable comes from community being involved. So my primary recommendation is in your stellar service as a state representative. We're clear about your relationship to policy and allow us to be included. That's my answer, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to take up so much time.
You're fine. Representative Neal, you have a comment or a question? I think you have to push the button.
Can you hear me? There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you everyone for being here. So I'm not from Atlanta,
yes,
but I'm close enough in Clayton. Yes. I'm very familiar with what I've heard about the street groomers.
Right.
I have a few questions in reference to that. So correct me if I'm wrong, street groomers is designed to step in before law enforcement gets involved. Is that correct?
Before and with.
Before and with. Are you all funded or supported at all? Okay. Would it be beneficial or impactful if street groomers were to become an official supported entity of government of some sort, even if it's local?
Not just street groomers, but other organizations have also been reliable and sustainable in communities, but they have not been able to get the kind of funding and resources. But to answer your question, Madam Representative, is the following. If a funding resource can be created, not all on government, we have foundations who want to get involved, but there's not a framework of government for them to do that. But yes, Madam Representative, if street groomers and other organizations could be funded to do the work, we could enhance our reliability and impact some of the recidivism that the state representative is talking about.
Okay, and I want to throw this into the atmosphere for the committee and for the people here. And the gentleman behind him, Horace Williams, is actually very familiar. There's a project called the X-Men Project, which is similar
right,
to
it is.
Street groomers that came out of New York, like in the 90s, where groups like street groomers stepped in lieu of calling the police first for the crimes or what you would call non-emergency incidents, and it actually drove down the crime rates, actually improved housing values, and that has been something actually I've been speaking to Mr. Horace that's behind him
sure.
For nearly over a year about trying to bring that program together. But I wanted to put in the atmosphere, it is something I'm working on, but I just wanted to know what the status was with the street groomers.
Well, we are clear about working with the police department and other law enforcement agencies of calling us first. That's who we are. We are groomed to be called first. So they call us, but they don't have the resources to give us to say, okay, we need to house these 20 people. We need to set up substance abuse program for these 48 people. None of the majors and the chief have the resources to be able to do that. The Department of Public Health, who would have the mental health, they have 18 districts throughout the state, but they're so tied up with COVID now and the treatment, they don't get a chance to get involved in the prevention. So the kind of public policy accountability that this committee has, those would be the kind of recommendations that we would make. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have one last question for him, please.
Representative Frazier, go ahead.
Yes, Representative Frazier.
Marcel, just quickly, can you pronounce your name of the organization is Street what?
Street groomers.
Groomers.
Right.
Okay, my question is this. Would your organization been beneficial in helping Major Span with the lady that's with the fecal matter all over her? Would you have intervened and helped them where we would not have to spend
Yes, State Representative.
$40,000 or more trying to?
We have people every day that are in the same condition as that woman. So the community has the intention. Just recently we worked on an initiative over in DeKalb County where we took 35 people who got displaced and rejected and found them homes. We have people every day who help people who have feces all over their body, who have been plagued with drug addiction, who have home abuse issues. That is what we do. But the police department does not have those resources to give us. We have to go through a litany of public policy administrative procedures to draw down on that money, and a collaborative effort that could be put forth by yourself and others would be highly useful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much for being here with us. I'd like to talk to you offline after.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
All right.
Good evening, y'all. My name is Horace Williams. Personally, I'm here in two capacities. One is that I'm the CEO and founder of a pacesetter company called Empowered Apps. Basically, it's a technology platform that aims to connect communities through civic participation activities that then further their enablement to have influence politically. And there's a couple of key points that I heard here that I'll connect to that, and I'll do so as quickly as possible. But I also come here as a resident of Atlanta. So I have lived and owned housing downtown Atlanta since 2008. I currently live in Westview on the West End and have seen that community have its ebbs and flows as well. And when I was downtown, and I'm trying to be solution oriented, because I have a few things that I think we were starting to conceive upon that tie into what my friend Representative Yasmin was talking about, but even expanding upon that with regards to getting funding to local organizations that are already doing the work, right? So in New York, we had some, I know they have it here. Is it called business improvement districts here as well? Something like that? Okay, so for anyone who's not aware of a business improvement district, it's basically when the local businesses come together and create their own kind of taxing locally that they then use to invest in their own communities, right? So what happens is they create a framework in which they own their own accountabilities for the communities that they represent without necessarily having to always wait for local political, impact or capital. When we start talking about, for instance, the homeless and mental ill issues that are throughout Atlanta, I constantly ran into what seemed to be the solution, but also inherently the problem, which was one, and someone mentioned it earlier, the time needed on a person-to-person basis to first build trust with those people, because you gotta remember, someone who's in that circumstance is more than a matter of capital, right? It's about their loss of trust in society as a whole, and the circumstance they've come to that led them to be in that space. And if you think about the 24-hour need, which I heard was mentioned earlier, it's a lot of personnel, and it doesn't matter how good your heart is, we all got bills to pay. And those people need to be adequately compensated, and there needs to be more of them. But the insight also needs to be hyper-local. You mentioned earlier something along the lines of, I know you said it off the cuff, but not understanding why people join gangs. That's kind of problematic. And that's also why the legislative resources or personnel should help produce that capital. But there should also be some local framework to enable communities to help self-produce, represent, and protect themselves as well. Because that's more of a proactive layer of accountability. And that can be done through two really key things. One is the adequate allocation of capital to the areas that have places like the Gateway Center and others that are starting to do the work, but we know they need the resources. So if we know that's a problem, and we know that they're driving the solution, but we know that for the solution to work, they need scale, it's really somewhat of a streamlined issue, right? But then the other thing is, when you talk about community accountability, is one thing, and I'm from New York originally, I can't say we were much better, probably worse, but one thing that enables community accountability is transparency and enablement. There's too much disconnection from those who are the policymakers and the representative process as a whole from many of the communities that we are actually talking about right now. And I think that from a solution standpoint, one, the dissemination of information, particularly what communities need to know to begin the process of just discovering each other. What is it to community police? What is it to build those relationships? When I moved into Westview, I was almost there, I want to say 2 months. Now, granted, I'm a couple inches bigger than small. So, my going up to someone when I have an issue may not be everybody's choice. But a young man that was 2 doors over from me stole something from the front of my house. And we saw it on camera. And basically, he was sitting in the same clothes, sitting in front of his house 2 doors down. So I just went up to him. I said, it's a stupid reason to go to jail for stealing my mama pantyhose out in front of, the house in the package, right? And I said, but what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to call police. I said, but you're not going to do is come back to my house again, right? He said, yeah. I never had another problem with that kid, and I've been there for 2 years. But see, the thing is that people want to be cared about. People want to feel a sense of community. But you can't be a real community without really being immersed in the parties that govern those communities and having the resources that govern those communities. Because if you look at some of the communities that are thriving most in the city of Atlanta, like, they are properly represented. And not just, and when I say properly represented, let me rephrase that, their community level engagement is high. They have leverage that they've built through coalition amongst each other because of their awareness into the process. And we know, because it's common sense, that there are other communities that are just not as aware. And in those communities, there needs to be a proactive effort to produce that information, show people who are doing the work that they have the support of representation, and getting those resources in, and those education and that mobilization in, so that some of the weight can be taken off the police and some of the accountability. So now everything is not exercising, creating new laws and criminalization, which I think was, what the gentleman was hinting at earlier. It's not just mass incarceration he's worried about. He's worried about, different ancillary or concept pieces of legislation that create new ways to lock people up. And frankly, Georgia's prison and jail system right now is under enough scrutiny where I think that there should be some new creative tactics nailing that stuff. Last piece I'll say is everything I've mentioned here is not just something that I feel like is an issue, it's something I'm actively working on, particularly with building ecos and communities that work together across participation activities, local civic engagement activities, that are disseminating the information they need to have the context necessary for them to properly represent themselves. And I know I'm not the only creative person in Atlanta. There needs to be a better avenue for folks like myself and others to know where to present solutions, and then have some avenue of helping get those solutions funded and an exercise in seeing if they can better improve our communities. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. Representative Maynard, you have.
So I'm really thankful for, so far, the comments we've had. We have a lot of people here, and so I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to come up and let the committee know what they would like the committee to know. So let's be cognizant that it's a lot of people in here, and let's try to hone in on what we want the committee to hear. Thanks.
Next person, please.
Evening, folks. I thank you for coming out this evening. I'm from East Orange, New Jersey. You're what I really want to come here to your city. You want me to move from one place, come down to your lovely city. Always heard about Atlanta, Georgia. I decided to move here 10 years ago. I represent Education Through Achievement. It's a gang rehabilitation intervention program, established 1985. I've been doing this a long time. I needed to get into your school system down here, and I did. I brought my program to a school that was, I'm not too familiar with your locations, but it was a middle school, 250 handicapped children. I was in there, they brought my program there, I talked to the children there. I was very instrumental in getting different kinds of opinions from our children. Why is this happening to you? Well, what is it that you need? I need support. They had a child that when I first came to the school who was giving the school a problem. When I showed up, guess who wasn't at the school? The kid that they wanted me to have a problem with. It's not a police issue. Although we need the police, we need assistance. We need a place to go when we have a troubled child. This is not always, lock them up. Really do not put these children in an incarceration facility. That's where they get their education from. We don't chase them when they don't go to your public school. But when you put them in jail and you sit them there with somebody who has bad intentions for a year, every day, that's what I'm going to learn every day. So be careful who you put in jail. Another thing, this is a recruiting position from the schools. You have to do something in your schools. It's not arithmetic, math, science. This is, I respect people. This is what you have to get over. I don't know about curriculum. I was in education for 35 years. I wasn't a police officer, but every day I went to work, I wound up in a police car, patrolling the city. I wasn't a lawyer, but I presented cases to the court for 25 years in court. So I understand what the situation is. We have not done our job. I usually pass out Band-Aids before I talk to the people who are listening, because I'm going to step on some people, because we haven't done our job. We put the kids in front of PlayStation. I'm working. Stay here. The child that was given a problem in the school, he had 5 sisters, no father, and a mother who was on welfare. And some guy would come in every now and then and tell everybody what to do. So why would he stay at home? I'm going to go out in the street. So when you go out in the street, guess who's waiting for you? Okay? So they're going to wait for him. The more you put them out, the more they're going to go to the gang problem. There you have a gang problem here. Now, you've been ignoring your problem. I've talked to people who are seriously looking to disrupt your neighborhoods because they don't have any other alternative. They're going to eat. Now, you raise a child all your life and give them a nice car and send them to college. They go buy a car and want to say, we want to celebrate and go out, and that same guy who didn't go to school with your child robs him and shoots him and takes his car. For what? Because we didn't do our job as parents? This is a terrible situation for you folks down here. And this is everywhere. It's not. I'm from New Jersey. When I needed to get representation from the gangs down here, I had to call my OG up there. I said, I need somebody to vouch for me. Where are you at? Atlanta. I said, you're in Atlanta? I said, how come you're down here? It's my last little comment. Because it's easy pickings. That's all I have to say. I want to thank you folks for coming. Excuse my back there. Thank you so much. Get involved in your school. Tell your principals, your superintendent, I need something for these children. I need some way to, and you use these pros down here. These kids want to buy their sneakers, you got to bring me some money. Now you got your Hawks and all your football. They have more money than they need, and we all know that. They need to give some of that money back to us. That's it.
Go ahead. Question. Yeah, sir, thank you for your comments. I want to just mention briefly, just so you'll know, for everybody here to know, in about 2016, I think, Chairman Powell, we passed we have probably the strongest anti-crime, anti-gang bill in the country here in Georgia. So we are aggressively trying to deal with that. I wanted to mention one other thing that you called attention to something that as I've been researching and studying on crime, that is really profound to me when I saw it, and that is this. There is a direct relationship between a zip code's crime rate and its level of fatherlessness.
Yes, sir.
That is a fact.
Yes, sir.
And it's a profound fact. And it's interesting to me how little we talk about that.
Yes, sir.
We have got to do, and so I would ask you and everyone here, help us to discover how can we encourage families to be together, because sometimes there's tax policies, there's any number of things. I don't know what it is, but crime, we've got to get to the root. At some point we're talking about crime, once it's already occurred. We've got to deal with why we have it in the first place. And of course, fatherlessness leads to poverty.
Absolutely.
And poverty leads to crime, but it's not just those issues.
No, it's not.
And so it is anybody here can Google it, direct relationship, if you look at a zip code, between fatherlessness and crime. But thank you for your comments.
Thank you for your time. And I can be contacted 973-868-1223. My name again is Reginald Griffith. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You're absolutely right. So when you think about fatherlessness, that equals single mother. And so we had a discussion at actually the Georgia Leadership Institute this past summer, and one of the things, there was a debate that went on at the Leadership Institute was, can you stop a father from leaving, or do you deal with the reality of there's a single mother? And so it's two different perspectives, and so there are lots of community organizations within this community that deal specifically with supporting single mothers, because that is the reality, and it's a wish that the father would stay, for whatever the reasons are, and the reasons that there aren't fathers are plenty, which is why we're here today, but there is this reality of supporting single mothers.
Next person, please.
Good evening, Deborah Scott from Georgia Stand Up, the CEO of Georgia Stand Up. Thank you so much, State Representative Misha Maynor. I come today because I am excited about having this conversation right here in this neighborhood. I went to Clark Atlanta University right down the street. This is a sweet spot of the work that we do, and I'm so proud of the residents and the community that came out, and we hope that they'll continue to come out, and thank you for having this here. And we're glad that you're here to listen. So I was on the mayor's advisory task force for anti-violence. I think anti-violence task force. So there is a report, Sally Yates and a number of folks were on that committee. There is a report, it is on the City of Atlanta's website, about some of the findings that we came up with. One of the findings is that a lot of the crime is actually happening by people who know each other, whether they go to a club or they met each other recently, somebody stepped on somebody's shoes, or somebody broke into somebody's car at an establishment that they might have been selling alcohol, and it's in the evening. And so it's not just random crime that someone's going and shooting up Buckhead or Morningside just because. It is usually people who were acquainted even for a short amount of time. Is this correct? Okay, either a short amount of time. And so we have to really build into the budget, and really this is an appropriations conversation about de-escalation. What do you do when two men are upset with each other and everyone is allowed to carry a gun? How do you resolve it? Where are we teaching how to resolve these conflicts? So we need conflict resolutions as well as de-escalation. In addition to that, because someone mentioned about the fathers not being there. So did you know that if you can't pay your child support and you're driving, they will take your driver's license because you can't pay your child support. But if you have to get to work and you're still driving, then you get arrested and pulled over, you lose your driver's license, and then you lose your ability to care for your children. So it's a cycle. So I support funding the solutions in these communities. A lot of the community leaders that are here and some that are not here really can convene their own community stakeholder table. Fund that. Fund the solutions that happen in the community. We talked about the street rumors, and we have the People's Agenda and a number of organizations. These organizations are trusted organizations on the ground because they just don't see us when there's a problem. They see us feeding people. They see us taking people to the grocery store. They see us making sure people get their COVID-19 tests. So those are the folks that you really need to, and I know you do a great job of pulling us all in, but pull them in as stakeholders to say, what are the solutions, because the solutions are already there. We know that Parks and Recreation, I was over in Parks and Recreation for 7 years in the city of Atlanta. During the pandemic, the parks and the basketball courts and the pools were closed. They open towards the end. But what happens to a child that, one, may not have adequate Wi-Fi in their home? They're sentenced to school to work at home, to do their schoolwork at home. They can't really do it. They don't have the technology to do it. There's no support. The recreation center is closed. So what do? You go outside, you start kicking the ball, somebody throws a rock in a car, and then things just start from there. So let's start at the root. The broken window theory is real. If you have a neighborhood with a bunch of broken windows, there's probably going to be more crime there. Let's deal with the problems and not just the symptoms after they come to our door. This is about building the community. As we said, we can't arrest our way out of this problem. The police need help. They need help from the community. They need wraparound services, social services. We talk about those without homes. But in some cities, you actually have lockers and storage places and free showers. We don't treat our people, whether they're with homes or without, right here in Georgia. There's a way in which we can treat people without homes with dignity. You can have a free shower. So the woman that with the fecal who may not be able to trust the people that she goes into the social service agency with because she has a mental health issue. So mental health issues and wraparound services need to be combined together in mobile units with trusted people that look like them to say, come on, let me talk to you. But look, did you know there's a free shower over there? But what we do is say, you have to come with us and come to this shelter. Well, if you've been abused, if you've been raped, if you've been manhandled, you don't want to go to a shelter because they don't know what's going to happen. You have to get out in the morning. So we have to make sure that the punishment fits the crime, but also the social services that we need are actually appropriate for the community. So then also, let me just say this one last thing. Let's put it on the table. Let's put the race issue on the table. We're talking about where the black men are. They're in these jails. right? And sometimes we're not treating our people equitably. So if you mentioned a bag of pot, right? So a bag of pot in some areas is not a crime, right? In other areas it is. But if Jerome is riding through a town where there's already a police barricade, they're going to stop him and arrest him in a small town in Georgia, but in Atlanta he may not get arrested for that. So we have to make sure our punishment fits the crime. What is the crime here? Versus someone who's breaking into cars and murdering people, raping people. We have to make sure that we're balancing it out. So we thank you for coming to Southwest Atlanta. We want you, you're right down the street, so we're glad you're here. But keep coming back and hear the solutions. I want you to do it in every town, in Augusta, in Albany, in Savannah, because the solutions are right there in the community. And if you give them the resources and the space, they will give you the answers. Thank you so much for hearing us today. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Charles Spencer. I think I'm going to continue her conversation. I'm a resident of Georgia. I've been here. I'm a graduate of Frederick Douglass High School. Received my master's from Georgia Tech. My question is going to be short, hopefully, and simple for state law enforcement officials. I think the case of Ahmaud Arbery was not a special case. Vigilante groups here in Georgia are very real. I've been personally targeted in my neighborhood. I believe these are the same groups that have infiltrated law enforcement, military, and have traveled to the U.S. Capitol. From here in Georgia, I'd like to know, simple question, what is the state doing, state officials, state law enforcement doing to uproot these elements in local communities and in enforcement? And kind of continue from what she said, a lot of roadblocks have been in certain part of towns targeting certain groups. What are we doing here in the state to stop this? Thank you.
I believe the GBI is working very strongly to identify a lot of different groups that, not just gangs.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Sorry. I believe the GBI is working very diligently through their intelligence to identify some of these groups. And I believe it was just a couple of weeks ago, I believe they had a press release where they had found some domestic terrorism and they'd snuffed that out. So I think they're actively engaged in that, if that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So I mean, I think they're actively engaged in that from what I've been told.
Okay.
As well as gang
I mean, they've
activity.
been embedded into these systems, you know.
You said you had been targeted. How have you been targeted, if you don't mind me asking?
Followed around, similar to Ahmaud Arbery. Followed in my own neighborhood. Targeted. I don't wear a suit every day.
And where do you?
I'm a CEO of a company.
Where
yes.
do you live? Where do you reside? What community?
So I reside in East Atlanta.
East Atlanta.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes.
One of the sponsors needs to leave from, he's a news host. He lives and works in this community, and he wants to speak, if you don't mind, before he has to leave and go on the radio.
First of all, I apologize for everybody. Misha asked me to moderate, and I got here late, so I apologize. My name is Shelley Winter. I got to go do my show tonight. Shameless plug, 95.5 WSB, if you didn't know. But I did want to say something. As a conservative on one side of the political fence, and then as a member of the community that I grew up in, a culture I grew up in, on the other side, I'm in a unique position to see everyone's perspective. And what I see here is very interesting. We have this, our deputy chief made a comment about resources, and it was almost like, okay, not from you guys, but from the audience, kind of like, oh, well, you need resources. But when my brother Al, who I've known for almost 20 years, mentioned we can't lock our way up out of it, there was a hand clap. And there's a disconnect there, because you have these men and women putting their lives on the line to get criminals off the street, saying that they're arresting the same people over and over, but then we have a community that doesn't want basically a mass incarceration situation. And I think we have to understand that everyone on both sides has to come together, because at the end of the day, it's really about saving lives, whether it's homeless lives, whether it's young people's, children's lives in schools that are doing nothing wrong but in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think I love my sister for doing this, and understand this, that this is what state leadership, state representatives should be doing all across the state. So please make sure if anybody, I'll say on their side of the fence, on that other party, the Democrat Party, tries to challenge her, you make sure you fight tooth and nail to keep her in office. And that's my shameless plug for her, because nobody's doing this kind of work that I see. But I just want to say, we really have to understand that this is not a partisan issue. This is not about right or left. This is not about guns. This is not about things like that. This is really, really about saving lives. And if we truly want to save lives, we kind of got to put all those differences to the side and do the work to save lives, because we got to back them up, but we also don't want little Johnny, going the wrong way. But we have to stand with them, and we have to vote for people that want to give our law enforcement officers and sisters and brothers the resources that they need, because it doesn't make any sense to put people out in the street in danger with no resources, because all we're doing is putting people's lives in danger. So thank you for having me, my sister. Thank you, representatives, for coming to the hood. We appreciate you very much. Right around the corner is Spinning Pie, great pizza. Please spend your money while you're here. Buy black, and tune in to me at 9 o'clock on your way home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You'd like to come on up to the podium, please?
It's hard to go after Mr. Shelley Winter, a great community advocate and a good friend for many years. Representative Maynard, thank you for this forum. Ladies and gentlemen of the panel, I'm Al Herring of Stone Mountain, Georgia, with I Care America. I'd like to thank the Deputy Chief and the peace officers that have gathered together in this preventative measure. And that's what really we're speaking about. At 40 years of being in this great state of Georgia, have I never seen a bad library or an ugly church? Community resources. As you go back to your districts, communicate with your constituency and let them know the resources that are available, how to get online, if you need government aid, if you need college tuition support, if you know how to settle a dispute and need a mediator, go online, go to the libraries. And that's essentially what we're talking about. The connectivity of our state. We have brought Hollywood to Georgia and essentially defeated California. How great is that? The resources of Republican governor with Democratic local leadership. Both parties coming together. And we're all standing here, it's late, it's raining outside, we're all hungry, want to go home. But we are here to bring together the state. One Georgia, one mind for the people. Community measures. Kids don't want to go out and commit crime. They commit crime for hopelessness. Go to your teacher, go to your clergy, your synagogue, your imam. Talk to your community fathers and mothers. And I'm asking you as the leadership to reach out. I work with Dr. C.T. Vivian's Leadership Institute in Atlanta, Martin Luther King's mentor. Leadership is in the action, and I see action with all of us here tonight. It is not one person versus another, it's all of us together. I implore you from the deepness of my heart, please go back and speak to your communities. Let them know the ease of going online. All of you have fought to give this resources for the libraries, for the community. And only by us standing together will we be stronger and bring Georgia for the truest destiny it was set to achieve. It is not about what happened 100 years ago or forgetting the crimes of the past. It is about growing together from all communities, all races, all creeds, to building the republic that we have sought and the democracy that we shall achieve. I thank all of you for your time, and I love you, God bless you. Look to the children. Guide them towards things they can do without going to jail beforehand, and show them we have an investment in the community for your interest. All of us. Thank you. God bless you. Good night.
You got to give that man a round of applause right there. I don't know if you guys want to ask him a question. I just ran up to the mic. Is that okay?
Good. Come right on.
I can come on up?
Come on
okay,
up.
I got you. So, I want to talk to you for a second. I got a few things on my mind. Georgia's on my mind. My name's Ken Wainwright. The president of the Rideshare Union, Local 404. We're unionizing all the Uber, Lyft, DoorDash drivers, and if we haven't gone to your city yet, we will soon. But we're currently passing legislation to make sure that there's additional representation. This really speaks, and I'm also a candidate for District 3 City Hall of Atlanta, and it would be so great to have a stronger partnership with you, because there is such a strong disconnect. Even as we sit in this room, there is a very, very strong disconnect. I want to talk to you about the district that was put on Netflix. It was called Snow on the Bluff. Many of you probably have known about it or seen it, but it's right. It was it viewed the crime that was going on right there in the district that I'm currently running, and that my former mentor, Ivory Young, represented. A great man, one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life. And he was like a father to me. And while I was around and while I was running around that district with him, kind of like a father, kind of like a son would with his father, one thing that I noticed is that while he was fighting an illness, he gave no excuses for the results. He was fighting an illness and someone not picking up a recycling bin, a trash can, crime, potholes. He owned that leadership. And I really want to speak to the fact of the business that we're in when it comes down to leadership and not giving excuses, giving results, adequate results. Right now, the results right now that we're seeing is a lack of leadership, a lack of strong leadership, and not getting the results. So when it comes down to results, and there's so many people who've spoken, we really want to focus in on, if it's crime. Oh, and by the way, Ivory jumped in other districts as well. It wasn't just west side of Atlanta. It was District 4, it was District 2. He owned it. So this is about leadership right now and results. Let's go into, I'm talking, which you just pointed out, was preventative measures, which is critical. There isn't any funding going on. We see funding when it comes to Midtown, when it comes to extra security. Buckhead wants their own security, their own police at this point. The West Side has been wanted some of these measures, and raising up additional funding to make sure there could be additional security to prevent crimes from happening is critical, is important. It's not happening, and we can see it's not happening by what? By the results. I'm willing to partner with you to be able to get that while the police force is raising and they're training. But you got to think with the police force, with all due respect, they can't even build a new training facility without getting pushback. And it's pathetic, because the same people say, hey, we want crime cut, or they're not the same people, but the representatives, even the ones who voted to not have it, are having people having people at their house. And I want to talk to and so if you're serious, and the reason why I brought up, especially with the union efforts, just last weekend, it was about 30 break-ins when it comes to cars. 17 of those was Uber, Lyft, DoorDash related. So now it's become even easier for criminals to do what they want to do. But I really want to talk to especially my community and my people, because it's important for you guys to understand that there's some bourgeoisie black people who are representing, and they're not doing nothing for us. Do you understand? That they're running for office, they're getting inside office. Some of you are the same ones that's voting for them, and they're not doing anything for us. I have personally spoken to Vince Champion, the union president of police. He responds every single time. But that's not what the media pushes. So we need to understand who's who, by what, by their actions. I love the labor union, and I love the union because it really doesn't look at the Republican or Democrat. It looks at X's and O's. It looks at what you're doing and what you're not doing. Are you going to pick up your phone? Are you going to make action? Are you going to write legislation? Or are you not? It is basic. And I really appreciate the effort and the sacrifices that each one of you officers put in every single day. But now now it's showing that there's additional support that needs to happen because, unfortunately, one of the officers that you see in this room may not be here. An officer was just shot in the face right on Peach Street. And these are the same officers that we would call if there was a domestic violence issue or if there was a DFACS issue. Do you get what I'm going with this? There's additional funding. I'm willing to partner with you. We need to be able to do it to what? Get tangible results. And I'm going to say this because it's really important, and I'll end here. I went to Morehouse. I've lived right here, and let me tell you something. And if people can attest that's living here, I've never seen so many Brian Kemp stickers on cars. The strong disconnect that Brian Kemp has been astounding, okay? I'm gonna go a little further with this. You could tell him I said it. That there was a company that I sued, okay? Took them to court, I whooped their tail. They was some, how can I say this? They were really racist. I got a lot of money from them.
Sir, you got a few other people.
I got you.
behind
Oh, okay. I got you.
Let's try to stay on point.
I got you. Let me get this message to Kemp. Because you guys came to my neighborhood, and we don't ever see you guys come to our neighborhood. Do you get where I'm going with this? So when it comes down to our community, okay, the same ones who have to implement change, there were things that were done that we see from the top down. You can't say that you want to help our community, come to our block, and then sue the city of Atlanta. Lock up Nikema Williams. Lock up Park Cannon. What we've been shown is that there's no level of respect for our black women. None. For when they want to get something done. If you really want to do some change, put a time and a date on it. Come back to the bluff. Did you hear how much disconnect it was when you just said, hey, we're not trying to purposely put any officers in mass incarceration? Did you see the level of disconnect in the crowd just now? Your experience might be a little different from mine, a lot different from ours. But I dare you to put a date on it and come through the bluff, come through the water boys and see how disconnected this reality is that you have. If you really want to make a change, or just don't come back at all if you don't really want to do anything. Put a time and a date on it. I'll meet you wherever you want to go. Because some of these are bad areas and we don't see you guys, and now is the time to act. And if you don't want to do anything, don't put a date on it, don't worry about it, because guess what? We can do it, but that means we need to mobilize together and stop looking at these people with Brian Kemp stickers on their door and won't respect powerful black women when it's time to. Tell Brian Kemp if he wants to come to the bluff, he can come to the bluff and speak to the water boys. Don't say you want to help water boys. If you don't know their names, don't say you want to help the homeless if you're not there.
Sir,
this is Mr. Wainwright.
We hear what you say.
We appreciate every single opinion. Now, one thing that we have a couple more people that need to speak, and what I want the people in the audience to remember is this is the first time in history you have seen the Brian Kemp signs in the parking lot. So that means this is progress, right? Does anybody think that this is progress today? Yes. Yes. And so we can have our opinions, but we can't get anything done if we're arguing when we have our opinions. So Mr. Bartell over here spoke eloquently, and you don't have to speak eloquently for your opinion. You can speak however you speak, but we can't be mad at each other because then the conversation gets closed. If someone's yelling at you or someone's yelling at me, I don't even hear you anymore. And so we need to remember that we want to hear each other. Please come up, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. You have your feelings, and we want to respect that, but we want to be respectful in our dialogue also.
Whew, yeah, right. Good evening. My name is Chris Brown. I am the Public Safety Chair for the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board. This group is responsible for community engagement for the city of Atlanta. And I wanted to just bring reference, because I can't reiterate more than what we've already heard here tonight about resources and about access and exposure for young people and for families that have been disproportionately left behind. But we got to talk about those resources and that level of engagement because the people that are closer to the problems have the solutions. And I appreciate you guys for coming out here, but we want to talk about, as we talk about youth, about the laws and the resources that govern those youth, or that these employees that work inside Metro, these police officers, these correction officers, and the conditions of these facilities, and the wraparound services that they are offered. There's a lack of resources that are being offered at that level, which means that these people are returning back to their homes, sometimes in a worse condition than when they left. So we want to just have more community engagement to really talk about the laws and the funding aspect of funding these resources. Historically, they have been underfunded. The resource lists that we get from people that are coming out are saying they're outdated. Some of the resources are not even there anymore. So that's a big problem if we really want to address a lot of the issues that are probing the city of Atlanta and other jurisdictions around the metro area. These are crimes of opportunity. You know, the key word is opportunity. Right now, we have an opportunity. I think I heard brothers talk about time frame. The time is like now. I'm going to cite the Community Mitigation Guidelines to prevent Pandemic Influenza 2017. There's also a 2007 version that updated from the 2010 H1N1 situation we went through. But in those guidelines, they talk about community engagement from the bottom up. Like, there's not enough governance that can happen that'll trickle down to change and offset what has happened in such a concentrated area, and then trying to provide remedy with no real solutions that's not connecting to the ground. It has to be brought at this level, so that's why I appreciate what you guys are doing. But we have to have more of that one-on-one conversation with the real important people who help govern these areas and the real community leaders who can take the water back to those areas to now come up with real solutions. We have to fund these type of things. We can't get in a battle between whether we wear a mask or not wear a mask. Like, we're watching a division of government happening, and then we expect crime to still, straighten itself up. When we're watching the disconnect. So the lack of governance is a big problem. I appreciate personally, because again, I'm charged with public safety, and I take it over the last year, and I take it seriously because often I have to still deal with some of the same problems and the same mindsets and still convey the trust of government and the trust of people and leadership to be there and understand that there's a process to get things done. I appreciate this process and hope that in this process that we have more connectivity with engagement of sitting not here in the open facility, but being able to sit more in a one-on-one, looking and reviewing laws, looking at policies and things and opportunity on how we connect schools and those resources to the rest of the jurisdictions around. They can't keep being this big disconnect. I think we hear that loud and clear, but maybe we will be able to connect one-on-one, because I will definitely reach out, because this is a big situation and it's not going anywhere anytime soon because it's happening across the country. So it's not like it's an Atlanta problem where it's just Atlanta having this problem. I think that Atlanta has appealed to reach out and try to sit down and to try to convey what's going on, that is not just here. But we don't want to get the bureaucracy in this and make it political, and then people are still being leveraged upon, and then we just have this mass incarceration conversation. I heard something about cannabis. We have to then, we organize to get decrim to allow municipalities to have the autonomy to have those laws to dispose of cases within their jurisdiction. I think we should make that more uniform and allow the code to be that way down the block and say, hey, we should allow local municipalities to govern and dispose of those type of cases so they can get a handle on mental health and get resources, and maybe even from the treasury, from the money that's collected from that piece, to put into a program to really address the issues directly at the local level. and not politicize it and still have this unproportionate stakes law issue where it's unproportionate. We got to do something, us. And I hope that you hear us loud and clear. Some of us are very passionate about the things that we know and the things that we hear and the things that we think that we know. But the only way that we know is that we get it from you guys directly and we convey our message to you and you to us. And so I thank you and hope to hear more from you.
We started a few minutes after 5, so we're going to go a few minutes after 7.
Okay,
So
that's good, and we have, for sure, after him, I actually have, do you mind, I have one person on the phone that is going to.
have someone on the phone, Representative Maynard?
Yes, it's Reverend Anthony Motley. He is with the Lindsay Street Baptist Church. Can you hear me?
I can, Representative Maynard.
Okay, you have the floor.
Let me thank you so much. Thanks to you, Representative Maynard, for loving your community to the extent that you invited this wonderful legislative committee to take the step of coming into the community to hear our concerns. So I want to thank you. You're a wonderful representative, and we appreciate you so much and love you so much for it. And once again, thanks to the committee, the chairperson, and all of the officers. We are at a very critical place in our nation. And with our democracy itself hanging in the balance, two forces are at war, two forces are in battle. The forces of good and evil are warring against each other, and we're wondering who's going to win this particular round. Those of us who are people of faith, we believe that that good is stronger than bad, that love is stronger than hate, that truth is stronger than lies, but sometimes that the wheels of justice turn very slowly, and righteousness may be down on the mats for a while. But let me just say that our community, in terms of the black community, we are militarily occupied, economically exploited, and great attempts, I'm afraid, are being made to see to it that we are politically excluded as well. With the demographics changing every single day, the persons of color are will become the majority if we have not already. And the European American community, the minority. We've got to find common ground as a human family. We're all God's children across all racial, ethnic, gender, age, political, national, and religious lines. We've got to find a way, as Marvin Gaye would say, to bring more loving here today. War is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. What was the larger community's response when I look back on what I called at the time the crucifixion, the taking of Katherine Johnston's life after breaking in on her to serve a no-knock warrant? What was the larger community's response and reaction to that terrible tragedy? Why did it happen? Other than to satisfy, according to Dr. Louis Rupprich, who is the author of the book Policing the State and one of the jurors in the trial of Officer Juniper, one of the officers who was a part of that tragic event. Other than to satisfy a monthly quota, according to Dr. Rupprich, who was a juror. It happened because of how the black community is perceived through the eyes of the structures of power in the majority community. We are seen as a threat, black people. Let's just face it. Let's look at it for what it is, not just go through the motions. There's too much at stake, folks. We're seen as a threat, physically, numerically. Attempts to strip us of the very right to vote are being made in Georgia, Texas, and all over this country, shamefully, after all of the progress, all of the blood that has been shed, all of the lives that have been lost. That perception leads to all kinds of paranoid, oppressive, regressive, and suppressive responses like unjust and really insane voting restrictions. Once again, our communities militarily occupied. Black folk must be contained in the eyes of the larger community, unfortunately, for perceived protection of the majority European American community. Perceived because black folk are not after white folk. But white folk enjoy thinking that we are for some reason.
Preacher,
We just want the same opportunities and options that all of God's children who are endowed by their Creator to enjoy. That's all. We're economically exploited.
If you,
the low-hanging fruit to keep the cash flowing through the system.
Can we ask him?
Traffic tickets, parking tickets, fines, expired tax, bail, late fees are mostly paid by folk who are black, brown, and poor.
Reverend Motley?
Representative Maynard?
Yes. Yes, Representative.
I drove 3 hours to be here because I love every Georgia citizen. I don't care the color of their skin, but I thought we were here to talk about crime.
Yes, and that's what we want to talk
I'm
about.
anxious to help and to learn. But
we want to hear him
that's
speak about
why
anything
we're
he
here to
wants to
talk
speak about
how
with
we can
relation to
help with
crime.
Okay, so what I got out of what he just said about crime was qualified immunity.
Let me get to that piece, Representative. Let me get to that piece real quick. For the police to have legal immunity, another old relic of the Jim Crow South, along with the filibuster, Confederate statues and streets, for the police to have legal immunity from prosecution if they kill or in any way violate the constitutional rights of black people is to continue the historical pattern of declaring open season on black men, women, and children. Also, the police unions, and I'm otherwise a union supporter. Deborah spoke, and I'm a big supporter of the AFL-CIO and all of the other unions. But the police unions who negotiate these contracts with cities and municipalities, as I understand it, are shamefully racist to the core, and do not have the common good or even the common decency to exercise a sense of respect for human life. They're tribalistic to the core.
Reverend Motley.
Police officer, let me just say this, Representative. For the black police officer,
Reverend Motley, hold on, Reverend Motley.
We've got 5 minutes.
I have to cut you off, but your point is taken. I think one of the things when he called me, and I know that he's very passionate about this, is the idea of qualified immunity, where there's a quota where police officers must meet, and if you need to meet a quota, that can lead to unnecessary violence.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Representative Maynard, if I may,
Representative
we got the message.
We understand.
Next speaker, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
We've got 5 minutes.
We got the message about qualified
Okay, we
immunity.
have 5 minutes, and we have.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Put that in our record, please.
Chairman, thank you guys for coming out, and thank you all for being here. Who ain't here, thank you also as well. My name is Charles Brown. I'm from Cordele, Georgia. The documents that you guys have right now, that case is still active. I was placed in prison. I've been fighting this case 8 years. I'm out on parole, good behavior, came home. The Court of Appeal didn't rule in my favor, but this is a motion for reconsideration to the Court of Appeal, made a wrong ruling. I'm still pissed off about that. But I do have a court case coming up. So we the people demand equal justice here in Georgia/Cordele. I am the chairman over there. So the 3 issues that we fight now that we do have a solution to, and we would like to speak with you guys privately. Now, the massive killing from the police officers, young men, male, black, kicking in doors without a warrant, that's one of those issues. We did have one of the mothers child was killed without a weapon, was coming, but unfortunately she wasn't able to make it. But we tackled that first issue together as a group along with street groomers. Number 2 is the mass incarceration system that designed to keep us incarcerated illegally without no indictment. Now, number 3, dealing with the foreclosed housing, the scheme, the fraud, what they're doing here in Georgia, 83 years old, 50 years old, 49 years old, taking housing in their sleep, minding your own business, shaft outside, knocking on the door with 2 other deputies, telling you to leave your home. So those 3 issues is a major issue here in Georgia. Killing, incarceration, taking housing. We have a court date that's coming up on the 21st that we can prove that is illegal. On the 21st in Conroe, Georgia, Ms. Sharon Williams, I will be passing the information out to you guys. She have a court date coming up dealing with foreclosure. She owned a house right out. The judge and the prosecutor need to go to jail, and they definitely going, right? But she do have a court date. That point will be brought out in court. But these issues, over 400 houses being taken here in Georgia, and we standing and taking the front today. Okay. Now, also with the mass incarceration, with my court case that coming up, this is a prosecution misconduct, this is a JQC complaint, as well as a federal lawsuit that's going to be filed behind it. Now, the prosecutor right now in this case is Brad Rigsby. Brad Rigsby is the one that holding the open record. Whatever they gave to the grand jury, me and my family, we asked for that so we can have this hearing. He refused to do that. So the open record violation is a major issue here in Georgia.
So you brought up 3 points to us.
3 issues.
Okay. All right.
Now, with those 3 issues, with number 1, with the massive killing, correct, we do need to team up, and we will continue to team up with them. Then number 2, the mass incarceration, the prosecution misconduct have to be addressed. The oath of office, the bonds, all of that have to be addressed and brought on the table, because these DAs, like one in Brunswick, absolutely wrong for what she's doing concealed. That's what they're doing to us in Georgia now in the penal system, concealing the records. We do an open record, ask for the record so we can have a clear, true hearing like I was trying to do, but the DA holding the record so I can't have the hearing. So that's why the mass incarceration continue to stockpile as we speak now. Now we also have another issue in prison in Georgia where the vaccine shot, they're giving away $10 worth of food, soup, honey buns, probably peanut butter packs. And you go to medical and you take a shot. And that's the vaccine. Everybody, that's the majority, 85% in prison, poor broke, they ain't got nothing going on, so they will take the shot. That gotta stop. Also, along with the vaccine shot, they can't go inside of the courtroom or get transferred to a halfway house to better themselves because of the COVID-19 shot.
Okay.
Right, so we want to address all the issues today and to let it be known that the mass incarceration is going to continue to stockpile if you guys don't take the responsibility and be held accountable from the DAs all the way down and hold them accountable on an everyday basis. In these foreclosed houses, I asked on the 21st of this month, 9 o'clock, Conroe, Georgia, please come send somebody. Okay. And that's what I asked here today, and I thank you guys for y'all time.
We are out of time at this point. As the chairman of this committee, I want to thank again Representative Maynard for hosting this. Having this committee come to this district was my idea. We've heard from a lot of different people from around the state, and we all know that Buckhead's going to make a push. I was really concerned, and I've always been concerned, and I think the members of this committee are concerned because they took time out of their busy schedule to drive down here. But I wanted to hear from the folks along Bankhead. I want to hear from the people in downtown. And, you know, this was the first of one of these meetings. Hopefully we can continue this type of dialogue. You know, if you continue to have the same approach, you're going to get the same result. And I want to thank the speaker for allowing me the leniency and the support to do what we're doing here this evening. Perspective is a unique thing. Seeing things from a different perspective can allow us to have an opportunity to make changes and be the change that we want to talk about. I don't think we'll always agree. I don't think anybody on this panel will always agree on policy. But I think if we take time to hear and understand, we've already heard about common ground. And I don't think anybody in this room has any dreams or aspirations that we don't all share. I think we all want the same thing. We want a place for our children to be educated. We want to have opportunity. We want to have economic opportunity. We want to live in safe neighborhoods. We want to have quality transportation, air, water, just the basic necessities. It's the devil's in the details is how we all get there. And thank you for coming tonight, and we appreciate the opportunity to serve each and every one of you. We're in your neighborhood all the time. We meet right down here under the Gold Dome. You don't have to have an invitation to come. Our meetings are open. You can always speak during a committee meeting. You simply sign up. We ask that you be respectful and understand that time is of the essence when we're having those hearings, because we have so many people that want to speak. But, you know, we're in your neighborhood a lot. We drive right by here, and we go a couple of blocks next door, and we meet January, February, and March. And you're all invited anytime you would like to. So thank you very much for attending, and we will conclude this meeting at this time.
I'm going to wrap up and say something.
Go right ahead.
So for the people that are in the audience and the people that are streaming, one of the reasons today was so important is because you need to learn what the process is to get what you want done. That process is the laws are made at the Capitol, and like Chairman Collins said, you can go to the Capitol anytime you want to. There's the schedule for all the meetings are at www.legis.ga.gov. You go on that website, you see the listing of the meetings for the day. If it's related to something that you want to actively participate in, you go down and you do that. What happened today with this committee coming, they in essence said, you know what, we're going to bypass what we normally do at the Capitol. They could have done this by Zoom. We have people that drove from Augusta, you know, to come here today to be in this community. And so for those, or further. And so what is so important is that as we engage with each other in this new engagement, let's call it a new engagement because this has never happened before. We've got to learn, one, how to engage. How you engage is not yelling at each other, because I don't want you yelling at me. And how you engage is listening, right? And so that's what they did today. They came today and they listened. And that's all I want to say. And I appreciate everyone coming out today.
A big...
Street group presented to State Representative Misha Maynard. In recognition of your exceptional leadership, wisdom, service, commitment, and excellence to the city of Atlanta, behold how good and pleasant, let for your brethren to dwell together in unity. Psalms 133 KJV and Community Boutique Street Groomers. Thank you, thank you, thank you on behalf of the community. This is to you.
A big shout out to Betsy Thoreau and Media Services, Camille and DJ tonight for making this possible.